Well, good evening, everybody. How we doing? This is Breaking Spectre here, right on the 5x5 network. Good to have you aboard here for, an OBS show tonight. A little bit of a different one, and that we're going to put together here tonight. And reason for that, as I was doing an update today, going through some old archives and tidying up things and getting some various books in order and going back through some archives, I happened upon a few articles that might catch your interest, and it seemed to be a little bit of a prophetic look at things that would eventually come here. So I thought, what the heck, we'll throw it together here tonight and give it a go. And of course, on the broadcast tonight, I want to thank you guys for joining. If you're over on Twitch, good to have you aboard. YouTube as well. Periscope, I think we're pretty well dead on now. And DLive, looks like we got a few of you guys over there. Foxhole, we are up over there. And tonight, for the first time, we are broadcasting over on Trovo as well. So if by chance you happen to be over on Trovo, welcome aboard. And that'll be our replacement, at least for the foreseeable future, for the old Periscope side. Might get Vaughn up and going here before long, too, if I can get it all squared away. But nonetheless, here we are. All right, so tonight on the broadcast, like I said, I'm going to cover a couple things that I happened upon here as I was going through my old archives here. And it's really not all that long ago, frankly. It's only been since about 2018 that we had a little bit of leading indicators as to what would eventually play out here with the whole COVID business. And so I did an update, put all the updates over on my Patreon page, and I'll walk you through how to actually find that. You can go right over to my Patreon page at patreon.com/breakingspectre, and you can scroll all the way down to the bottom here, the latest and stuff, and see all 337 posts. I've been at this for a little while, since probably late 2017 time frame-ish, somewhere in there. And like I said, I just did an update here today to one of my health books and probably doubled it in size from what it once was. That being said, I'm just going to open the thing up here tonight, and we'll give it a look. And let's start scrolling through some of these articles that I happened upon that just so happen to be, like I said, a little bit of a precursor of perhaps things to come. So I'll wait for that to come up here. I'll take a look out there. It looks like, good to see 5x5 over on Trovo working. Looks like on chat. SGT Peterson, good to have you aboard. Zelda, the Kegel, Durf, good to have you aboard here this evening. So, if you get the opportunity, you can come over here. You can download the things. This particular book and that I have has got probably north of, what do I got, about 400 and some articles in there now. Probably about 1,600 pages. And if you back up to my first health book, if you will, just a collection of articles over the years, and that one's sitting north of about just under 1,100 articles and about 3,400 some pages. So the two of them together, you're looking at about 5,000 pages of nothing but health related stuff. And mind you, I've created a separate book strictly on vaccines, which if I ever get time, perhaps I'll touch upon that and maybe get that updated here as well. That being said, let me start scrolling through here and kind of bring you up to speed on what I'm talking about. And also, the beauty of these things is you can do the old Control F and word search these puppies, so that's kind of nice. So I'm going to actually go to a leadoff article here this evening, the next flu. There we are, right there. And I'll be able to jump right down to it. And lo and behold, we find out clear back on October 19th, 2018, the next flu explosion, rise in obesity and diabetes will exacerbate future pandemics. Huh, that's interesting. And of course, what did we see play out over the course of the last year? Okay, we just had everybody diagnosed with COVID, right? Everything was COVID. Everybody dies of COVID. You get in a car accident, COVID. You fall out of a plane, COVID. You stand on your head and fall over and die for whatever reason, COVID. It's all COVID, everybody. Comorbidities, those be damned, right? So that being said, obviously one of the major comorbidities is probably obesity, probably a better pandemic that goes untold here in this country, but I digress. This was kicked out, like I said, October 19th of 2018 over on Zero Hedge. The scientists involved in a new study published this month in the research journal Frontiers in Cellular and Infection Microbiology have sounded alarm over their ability to contain future flu pandemics in relation to the rise of obesity, especially in the West today. The study finds that growth rates in obesity and diabetes, along with populations which are increasingly resistant to antibiotics, could turn even a mild flu outbreak into an explosive global pandemic. And I guess I'll pause right there and think of our food systems, our air quality, our water systems, you name it, just how toxic things have become, right? We're no longer in a position where we're eating healthy or right in any sense of the word. Everything has been messed up. Let's put it that way. And I'm gonna circle back. I'll do my Jen Psaki attempt here at the end here and highlight a little program that I just finished up here today that may help your cause if you're interested. That being said, continuing on, says one of the authors of the study, Dr. Kirsty Short, virologist at the University of Queensland, told the Telegraph of the link between obesity and spread of dangerous diseases. There's been an incredible rate of increase of diabetes and obesity even in my lifetime, she explained. This has significant implications on infectious diseases and the spread of infectious disease. Dr. Short continued, but because chronic diseases have risen in frequency in such a short period of time, we're only starting to appreciate all of the consequences. Reflecting on the now century-old Spanish influenza pandemic of 1918, which infected a third of the global population and is estimated to have killed between 50 and 100 million people, she said of the next big outbreak, we know that there will be one. Prophecy. Says as our population is aging and chronic diseases are becoming so prevalent, that could turn even a mild pandemic into a chronic one, Dr. Short concluded. Though modern medicine and vaccines are better prepared to mitigate the impact of a major outbreak than in 1918, issues like obesity and diabetes more broadly present in society will likely provide a significant hindrance to prevention and treatment. Scientists fear as these conditions could alter the body's immune response, leading to greater rates of hospitalization and even death. And here we see the old statistics in that America is fatter than ever. Obesity prevalence is among the youth and adults in the U.S., and it's gone from about 30.5%, I guess, in adults from about 1999-2000 time frame, and picked up about 10 percentage points over the course of about 16 years. And looking at the youth, it's picked up about, not quite 5%, I guess, over that same time period. And it says, as disturbingly, scientists have predicted that if something on the scale of the Spanish flu were to occur today, it could result in a death toll as high as 147 million people worldwide, according to estimates. And I guess I'll pause there and think back a year ago, right? At the end of the day, what did we have the yin-yangs over in the UK try and predict in terms of death rates that everybody latched onto, and that was the reason for the lockdowns, only to find out a little bit later on that the numbers now were jacked up, coming out of, what was it, Oxford, I think, or one of the universities over there. Anyway, the dude was castigated, we know that. Nonetheless, it's interesting that even back in 2018, they were predicting 147 million people worldwide. Where'd they get those numbers from? And what sort of crazy-ass models were they using? Commenting on the widely observable fact that flu vaccines often fail each year, but trend that seems to be worsening, another author of the new study noted, "There is a lot to be concerned about," said Dr. Van de Sant, commenting on the most recent study. "We know more, but there's still a lot to look into, and we still don't have a vaccine to protect against all the strains of influenza. Developing one is the next big step, but we're not even close at the moment to getting a vaccine onto the market," Dr. Van de Sant explained. Meanwhile, nearly all recent studies of American obesity suggest the trend of increasingly overweight Americans will only continue, with one fat forecast from a half-decade ago predicting that a whopping 42% of Americans will be obese by 2030. That's real nice, isn't it? And again, look at our food chain. Look at the crap that is on our shelves today. I always have to joke when I talk to folks and say, look, if you go into a grocery store today, right, and you walk into and find a health aisle that is segregated with non-GMO stuff, and it's only one aisle, what the hell does that make the rest of the store, right? We need to get back to our roots, period. And so that being said, that's going to lead into another article I got here. Bear with me here as I pan around here. Predicting the next global pandemic. Let's see, let me back up here. Bring that back up. Another one that's in the old archives here. There we go. Predicting the next global pandemic. Again, this is another one that dates back to 2018 as well. Again, Auto Zero Hedge by Global Risk Insights. Don't know too much about them, but nonetheless, this is what we saw back on November 21st, 2018. It says the nature and likelihood of the next pandemic presents many challenges to governments and health organizations, as it could be an unknown pathogen that the world is ill-equipped to contain. The risks associated with such a pandemic has secondary effects that it not only affects human health, but also causes severe disruptions in economic, political, and social areas. Again, this is November 2018, a full, 10, 11 months ahead of when Event 201 took place back in October 2019. And of course, I'll touch upon this too, the fact that Moderna and some of these guys were already putting stuff in the SEC for eventual and future vaccinations, which I find to be rather interesting also around the same time frame. And of course, if you followed some of the work in that I've put out here, especially when I had about a 2.5 hour show talking about Bill Gates, you know that he's given a bunch of TED Talks over the years. It's out there in a public space for people to see and witness for their very own eyes. And who better than to predict and forecast all this stuff than old Billy Boy Gates and his Gavi and Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, etc., etc., and of course all their corporate ties. Continuing on, it says in 2017, scientists and public health organizations warned that the next global pandemic is imminent and that no country is prepared to confront the coming waves of illnesses. If the next pandemic is anything like the 1918 Spanish flu that killed 30 million people in 6 months, the global population will face unprecedented uncertainty. There is some indication that the next flu outbreak could involve the H7N9 strain, an influenza virus that is not yet highly contagious. The H7N9 is a type of avian influenza. The first cases in humans began appearing in 2013 in China. Coincidence, I'm sure, as we just saw the World Health Organization report come out that was heavily edited by our Chinese counterparts. This particular strain of influenza has mainly spread through poultry to humans. There are growing numbers of reported cases that are expected to be a result of human-to-human contact. Scientists hypothesize that the longer the virus circulates in humans who have been infected with H7N9, the potential exists for the strain to spread to larger populations. It says at present, the Center for Disease Control, the old CDC, and I'm sure you can trust them, right? It says in the United States rate, H7N9 is having a high likelihood of evolving into a widespread pandemic. Based on H7N9 cases in China, scientists know that 88% of those diagnosed developed pneumonia, and 41% of these patients died. H7N9 will not remain contained within China as it adapts to the human body. H7N9 has a potential to possibly infect millions of people globally. The questions that remain are when will H7N9 develop these capabilities, how quickly the virus will spread, and to what degree will it contribute to social instability. Boy, how very prophetic of this strain. And perhaps is it a variant of the H7N9 that eventually became the SARS-CoV-2? I don't know. I've certainly got articles in the old archives here indicating that, yes, there are indeed patents, and they leverage the SARS-CoV-1, morphed it into SARS-CoV-2. You can look and see, is it typical Rockefellers or whoever that are behind the patents? Of course, you can look all that up. In terms of economic disruptions, the interconnectedness of the global economy is a blessing, but also the world's Achilles heel. If H7N9 is the next pandemic, it is likely to affect millions of people and result in a high death rate. The world would likely experience a decline in economic output and growth at a devastating scale. Past pandemics are case in point. During the SARS epidemic in 2003, it is estimated that the global economy lost over $30 billion. SARS originated in Guangdong Province, circulated in southern China and Hong Kong before spreading to Canada through international air travel. Ebola negatively impacted economic growth in Liberia, Guinea, and Sierra Leone, and border closures resulted in the decreased movement of goods and services. West Africa lost $2.2 billion as a result of the outbreak. It also spread from West Africa to the United States and Europe as a result of healthcare workers traveling back to their home countries from Ebola-affected areas. Also, the 2015 circulation of Middle Eastern Respiratory Syndrome, MERS, in South Korea, saw tourism decrease by 54%, resulting in economic losses. And I guess I'll just kind of skip around a little bit on this one. This is a bit lengthy, but social upheaval, again, economic degradation could lead to a host of social and political issues. Let's see, flashing forward says public health officials would also struggle to implement health measures to halt the virus's spread, while at the same time not limit individual freedoms such as travel, going out in public, attending school, or work. Hey, why not just implement lockdowns, right? That'll surely work. The international community has failed to invest in detection technologies and research into new and emerging pathogens. These measures that could keep governments and institutions at a higher level of readiness to face diseases. The international pharmaceutical market is worth an estimated $1 trillion. However, the market for vaccines is only 3%. Get that? That's probably one of the critical pieces of this particular article. International pharmaceutical market is worth an estimated $1 trillion. Think of the vaccine manufacturers out there right now that have a product on the market for everything. That is the EAU, right? The emergency authorized use stuff, right? We got Johnson & Johnson, we got Moderna, we've got AstraZeneca Oxford, we got Sinoclass or whatever it is out of China. We've got the Sputnik 5 and that out of Russia, and so on, right? And of course, how better to grow the business and, let's put some more vaccines out there, because at the end of the day, you know what, we're probably not going to make that much. People aren't really buying into the old influenza A and B shots anymore. Run down to your local CVS or your Walgreens and, maybe you'll get the jab, maybe not. Maybe they get it right, maybe they don't. But boy, howdy, let's introduce this pandemic, freak everybody the hell out and scare them half to death, and whoa, we're going to come up with a solution, aren't we? Whoop, we missed that one. Looks like we got a variant over here and a variant over there. Well, doggone it, I guess we're going to have to come out with COVID-20. Next year it'll be COVID-21. Then it'll be COVID-22. But step right up and get your jab, right? I digress. The risk of pandemic spillover. New infectious diseases have emerged in all regions of the world every year for the last 30 years. Flashing forward says the ability of national authorities to demonstrate an open and informative relationship with their citizens during a pandemic or any other emergency is fundamental to a population's ability to cope with unconventional health threats. And again, folks, this was kicked out back on November of 2018 by Global Risk Insights. I wonder what sort of connectedness or how they came about the data and whatnot that they had. I find that very interesting that, like I said, it was just happenstance as I was going through this today, getting some things updated here, had a little bit of extra time, and says, wow, this is rather interesting in the parallels net that I'm seeing here, how well this played out. So another one here, let me jump around here a little bit within the old doc, CDC warning. There we go. This also back on December 27th of 2018. Again, a little bit of a prophetic look at things. Respiratory viruses attacking both children and adults. And this was out of Max Slavo's SHTFplan.com at the time. It says the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention is warning of a respiratory virus that is currently attacking both children and adults. The CDC says that everyone should watch out for respiratory syncytial virus, or RSV. Yeah, we'll just call it RSV for short. RSV may start out by noticeable symptoms that are very similar to those of the common cold, and most people recover in less than 2 weeks, believing they only had a cold. Some symptoms are coughing, wheezing, loss of appetite, runny nose, and a fever. Those symptoms are very similar to those of the common cold, and most people have actually had RSV before possibly believing it to be a cold. RSV can spread when an infected person coughs or sneezes. You can get infected if you get droplets from a cough or sneeze in your eyes, nose, or mouth, or if you touch a surface that has the virus on it, like a doorknob, and then touch your face before washing your hands. Additionally, it can spread through direct contact with this virus, like kissing the face of a child with RSV, and that, of course, according to the CDC. However, the CDC says that RSV can be serious for infants and the elderly. As of now, the government agency says there is no vaccine to prevent the virus either. There is a medicine that can help protect some of the babies. This medicine, called palivizumab, however you want to call that, we'll just call that PAL, is a series of monthly shots. RSV is the most common cause of bronchitis, inflammation of the small airways in the lungs, and pneumonia, infection of the lungs, in children younger than 1 year of age in the United States. It is also a significant cause of respiratory illness in older adults, but the virus is rather common. According to the CDC's own website, almost all children will be infected with RSV by their second birthday, building natural immunities to the infection. Should you be terrified of RSV? Probably not. The CDC is well known for the fear-mongering to get people to take a flu shot every year, regardless of its efficacy, and often attempts to scare the public into accepting their notions that common illnesses are dangerous. Boy, what did we just see here in the last 2 days? Oh my God, dude, the sky is falling. The CDC told us. I'm very fearful of what is going to come out of this. Please stay locked down. Idiots. But there are ways to help prevent RSV, and these will also help prevent common colds and the flu as well. Wash your hands often. Keep your hands off your face. Avoid close contact with sick people. Cover your coughs and sneezes. Clean and disinfect surfaces. Stay home when you are sick. I think we call that common sense, right? I guess perhaps that costs too much for common sense these days. Says you could also consider naturally boosting your immune system to help give your body a leg up should you be exposed to the virus or actually come down with any wintertime illness, such as a cold or the flu. Which, by the way, this has got to be a record-breaking year. Maybe 2020, I should say. 2021, we're still kind of in its infancy, but where is the flu? Where are the statistics for the flu this year? Did they just fall off the face of the earth? Did it magically get cured? Where the hell is it? It's all COVID, isn't it? So, CDC, produce the numbers. Where's the flu? State and local health departments, where are the stats on the flu? I want to see them. Produce them. Or have you been doing a little bit of fraudulent activity behind the scene? Just a question I might ask. And nonetheless, let me skip around here a little bit more here. And of course, let's see. Oh, let's go to this next one. On intravenous vitamin C. There we go. There we go. Alright, so another interesting article, and this one's going to go somewhere. But back... Oh, not that one. Let's go to the other one here. I'm going to come back to this one, because this is rather interesting as well. Now, bear with me here. I'll find her. This one was called Cancer Killer. There we go. That's the one. Intravenous vitamin C is a cancer killer the FDA still wants to ban. And this was also kicked out back in November of 2018 by government slaves. It says vitamin C has a broad spectrum antioxidant function with the ability to protect cell structures and DNA from free radical damage. Vitamin C is remarkably safe even in enormously high doses. Compared to commonly used prescription drugs, side effects are virtually non-existent. No matter how high the concentration, vitamin C does not harm healthy cells. Yet, through an array of enzymatic and metabolic reactions, vitamin C has an impressive ability to protect and treat a wide range of diseases, including cancer. And I guess I'll predicate that by saying I am not offering medical advice. I'm just merely reading the article. Do your research for yourself. That being said, is when something is this effective at treating disease, the FDA will stop at nothing to prevent public access. The benefits of long-term vitamin C consumption in excess of the U.S. government recommended daily allowance, the ORDA, are widely acknowledged and include reduced risks of cancer, cardiovascular disease, and cataracts. Higher than RDA vitamin C intakes have been associated with increases in good HDL cholesterol, decreases in LDL cholesterol oxidation, decreased blood pressure, and decreased cardiovascular mortality. The first physician to aggressively use vitamin C to treat disease was Frederick R. Klenner, MD, beginning in the early 1940s. Dr. Klenner successfully treated chickenpox, measles, mumps, tetanus, and polio with huge doses of, ding ding ding, vitamin C. Says he used massive doses of vitamin C for more than 40 years of family practice. Many practitioners who practice with IV intravenous vitamin C consider the treatment more effective than any vaccine ever invented. That's probably a key statement I'll highlight there and say, well, yeah, except they want to push all this COVID card business, so you'll be a card-carrying member of getting your vaccine. Well, I don't think so. We got better things to do, and vitamin C seems to work a lot better, so pound sand. Nonetheless, vitamin C particularly has a leading antioxidant role in the intercellular space surrounding each cell. It also has the ability to regenerate and optimize other key antioxidants such as vitamin E. It is a water-soluble vitamin, scientifically known as ascorbic acid, in its reduced form. Its absorption is relatively efficient at 70 to 90% for low doses. Any excess vitamin C that is not absorbed in the digestive tract is excreted. This prevents overdose by oral ingestion. Humans are one of the few species of animals that are not able to produce vitamin C. We rely on dietary intake to maintain stores. Many people with low dietary intakes of fruits and vegetables have suboptimal levels of vitamin C. In fact, cancer patients are often shown to have very low levels of vitamin C. Evidence documents vitamin C as one of the best antiviral agents now available. Vitamin C can neutralize and eliminate a wide range of toxins. Vitamin C will enhance host resistance, greatly augmenting the immune system, ability to neutralize bacterial and fungal infections. A study in the American Heart Journal found that the risk of heart failure increased with decreasing plasma vitamin C. Every 20 milliliter mol per liter increase in plasma vitamin C concentration was associated with a 9% relative reduction in risk of heart failure. So as far as vitamin C and cancer treatment, In the 1970s, doctors Ewan Cameron, Nicholas Campbell, and Linus Pauling were the first to report the use of using high-dose vitamin C to treat terminally ill cancer patients. They found that intravenous and oral treatments increased survival times compared to those patients who did not receive treatments. Since the initial studies by Cameron and Pauling, the exact anti-cancer mechanism of vitamin C has been studied and clarified. Considering the various functions of vitamin C in the human body, two distinct modes of action have been identified when it comes to cancer. For prevention, vitamin C has antioxidant effects that protect key cellular structures and function. It also prevents the formation of dangerous cancer-causing compounds. The dose to achieve an antioxidant effect is low, under 2 grams, and is achievable by dietary intake or oral supplementation. The second mechanism of action is actually a pro-oxidant effect. Doses above 15 grams are proven to have a pro-oxidant effect by generating hydrogen peroxide, which in turn selectively destroys cancer cells. High doses of vitamin C are preferentially delivered to the area surrounding the tumor because the vitamin molecule looks similar to a sugar molecule, and cancer cells have an increased demand for sugar to fuel their unregulated growth. When in the area surrounding the cells, the vitamin C molecules reacts with a metal ion such as iron or copper and forms a hydrogen peroxide molecule that damages the cancer cell. Over and above the pro and antioxidant effects, vitamin C has been shown to regulate cell division via the p53 protein, essential in cancer treatment and prevention, improve immune response, and reduce the severity of cachexia, weight loss due to cancer. A recent study also found that high-dose vitamin C reduced C-reactive protein levels and pro-inflammation cytokines in cancer patients, which in turn had positive effects on tumor markers. Linus Pauling, Ph.D., and Ewan Cameron, M.D., published a case report about 100 terminal cancer patients who had been treated with high-dose IV and oral vitamin C. The patients who received this therapy survived an average of 300 days longer than a control group of patients with similar disease status, and 22% of them lived longer than 1 year, compared to just 0.4% in the control group. Based on these results, Dr. Pauling convinced the National Cancer Institute to evaluate this therapy in a clinical trial of patients with advanced cancer. But when the results were published, vitamin C showed no therapeutic value. Why? Because rather than IV and oral vitamin C, as Drs. Pauling and Cameron had done, the NCI used oral vitamin C alone. Of course, the study failed. It's impossible to achieve the requisite blood levels with oral doses. What does that sound an awful lot like to you guys? Doesn't that sound an awful lot like what we saw with the demonization of HCQ in the early days, which we know to be effective, right? HCQ in conjunction with zithromycin and zinc and Z-Pak, things of those nature, when all taken in conjunction at the onset of detection of coronavirus, is very, very effective. But what did the media castigate? They says, HCQ, nope, bad, people died, right? And of course, they cherry-picked the study, and of course, they gave it to them late, and we find out that it was only HCQ rather than the whole concoction, right? Same thing here. It's not profitable to the big pharma folks to heal yourself, now is it? Says the body tightly controls levels of this vitamin by limiting intestinal absorption. Intravenous administration bypasses this control mechanism, and blood levels rise in a dose-dependent manner. For example, 10 grams of IV vitamin C raises blood levels 25 times higher than the same dose taken orally, and this increases up to 70-fold as doses get larger. Nevertheless, the flawed study gave conventional doctors an excuse to shun vitamin C, and to this day they dredge it up as proof that vitamin C is ineffective as a cancer therapy. Mark Levine, MD, a researcher at the National Institute of Health, has done a great deal of work on the mechanisms of vitamin C in the treatment of cancer. It was Dr. Levine's team that figured out exactly how vitamin C kills cancer. Vitamin C interacts with iron and other metals in the extracellular fluid, as opposed to within the cells, to create hydrogen peroxide. Hydrogen peroxide plays a vital signaling role to the immune system. marshaling white blood cells to sites of injury or disease. In high concentrations, it does much more. Hydrogen peroxide damages the DNA and mitochondria of aberrant cells, shuts down their energy supply, and kills them outright. Best of all, and unlike virtually all conventional chemotherapy drugs that destroy cancer cells, it is selectively toxic. No matter how high the concentration, vitamin C does not harm healthy cells. So yes, of course, vitamin C was demonized, as this indicates. And of course, I'll part from that article to jump to the next on vitamin C, because there's another interesting one and how it played a role in what we're currently dealing with now. Let's see here. Let's see if I can find it quick. That was that one. Where'd we go? There we go. Widely used to treat COVID in New York hospitals. There we go. COVID-19. Let's see. There we go. That's the one. So think back. Alright, so this was March of last year, while everything was starting to unfold. Not a lot was known about this particular virus. Early onset of the panic, people locking down, what remedies are out there, long before any talk of vaccines and full-on mask lockdowns, all that good stuff. A lot of people were looking at the obvious, and vitamin C was one of those. And if you remember right, up in New York, we heard about this guy. It says IV vitamin C widely used to treat COVID-19 in New York hospitals. And this came out via the Organic Prepper blog over and picked up by Zero Hedge at the time. It says, for years, regulatory agencies like the FDA have subtly targeted the use of such things as intravenous vitamins. One method they use to target the fabric of culture in which people utilize simple naturopathic remedies is the stringent enforcement of any regulation they can think of. It means that the FDA targets regulatory violations supposedly committed by those who deal in naturopathic medicine far more than violations from Big Pharma. Why? Well, Big Pharma's got a nice little revolving door with all the alphabet agencies, and it's just a big club, folks, and you ain't in it. This was almost 10 years ago. In 2011, it was reported that the FDA sent out a warning letter to a small pharmacy urging them not to stock intravenous vitamin C. In Australia, the mainstream media has consistently inundated the discussion surrounding health with propaganda over the last 10 years, and vitamin C has been specifically scoffed at. And thinking back to the article I just got done reading, you can obviously see why. This is knowledge they do not want you, the little guy, to have. They want you perpetually on that wheel, perpetually unhealthy, eating crap food, and perpetually sick, and will just treat the symptoms and keep you fat, dumb, and happy until eventually you die. It says, despite an observable urge for the regulatory agencies to crush the culture of vitamins and erase their history, it's leaking out into the mainstream that intravenous vitamin C in high doses is effective against COVID-19. Now, New York's largest hospital system is using vitamin C for COVID-19. And New York's largest hospital system, urgently ill COVID-19 patients are now being given large doses of IV vitamin C, an article from the New York Post reported a couple of days ago. Dr. Andrew G. Weber, a pulmonologist and critical care specialist affiliated with two Northwell Health facilities on Long Island, said his intensive care patients with the coronavirus immediately received 1,500 milligrams of intravenous vitamin C. Identical amounts of the powerful antioxidant are then re-administered 3 or 4 times a day, he said. Each dose is more than 16 times the National Institute of Health's daily recommended dietary allowance of vitamin C, which is just 90 milligrams for adult men and 75 milligrams for adult women. The regimen is based on experimental treatments administered to people with the coronavirus in Shanghai, China, Weber said. The patients who received vitamin C did significantly better than those who did not get vitamin C, he said. It helps a tremendous amount, but it is not highlighted because it is not a sexy drug. And that, of course, pulled out of the New York Post article there. Says they say that the decision to use IVC in New York was based on reports of its effectiveness in China. But vitamin C's reputation in America far predates that info, although not specifically in response to this virus. Intensive care patients who tested positive for the virus immediately received a dose of intravenous vitamin C measuring 1,500 milligrams, says pulmonologist Dr. Andrew G. Weber, a Long Island, New York critical care specialist affiliated with 2 Northwell Health facilities in the area. Up to 4 times a day, the same dose is re-administered. It was not specified what form of IVC was used, but it is likely to be either ascorbic acid, what you would typically buy at the store, or sodium ascorbate, a popular form intended to be easier on the stomach or the body's acidity. Some vitamins, originally derived from the phrase vital amines, have different beneficial effects at much higher doses. At the same time, some minerals or vitamins can throw bodily processes into a state of imbalance with doses too high. Vitamin C seems to be one of those vitamins that is potent and extremely beneficial at high doses. Vitamin C is being widely used to treat this virus throughout the system, a spokesman for Northwell confirmed. The institution that operates 23 hospitals, including Lenox Hill Hospital in Manhattan. This may be a better choice than the more pharmaceutical option. On a different note, a pharmaceutical combination consisting of malaria drugs known for horrific side effects mixed with antibiotics that are known to have no ability to kill viruses, hydroxychloroquine and azithromycin, was promoted by Donald Trump recently. Again, mind you, this is March of last year. Says Nevada recently banned the use of HCQ and CQ to treat the virus. For someone who believes in freedom, any sort of ban would seem like a step in the wrong direction. But the side effects of hydroxychloroquine and related compounds are well documented. The 2018 paper published at the Journal of Thoracic Disease examined HCQ-induced cardiotoxicity and heart failure in twins born to a mother who took the drug. And here you can see the study in that right there. HCQ-induced cardiomyopathy and heart failure in twins. Looks like that was from 2017 time frame, I guess. You can see that there on that particular site. Follow the link. Says another paper published in the European Heart Journal of Acute Cardiovascular Care said cardiotoxicity is a rare but serious complication of hydroxychloroquine. Not only that, but as of March 24th, some kind of federal permission was granted to New York hospitals to dose patients with a cocktail of HCQ and azithromycin to patients who were considered desperately ill on a compassionate care basis. And here we see the other study in that was put out, hydroxychloroquine cardiotoxicity, presenting as a rapidly evolving biventricular cardiomyopathy, key diagnostic features and literature review. That was kicked out, though it looks to be back on 2013. So there is plenty of research around this particular concoction. Says hopefully this compassionate care mentality can be directed toward the firm belief in voluntary treatment of whatever a hospital has, wherever in the world the person is, rather than involuntary treatment with whatever a hospital chooses to give. New York is ahead of the curve. In contrast to what is happening in other places, New York Post reported the vitamin C is being administered in addition to such medicines as the anti-malaria drug HCQ, the antibiotic azithromycin, various biologics, and blood thinners. So why vitamin C? Weber, 34, said vitamin C levels in coronavirus patients drop dramatically when they suffer sepsis, an inflammatory response that occurs when our bodies overreact to the infection. It makes all the sense in the world to try and maintain this level of vitamin C, he said. Clinical trial on the effectiveness of intravenous vitamin C on coronavirus patients began February 14th at Zhongnan Hospital in Wuhan, China, the epicenter of the pandemic. let's hope we see more hospitals using IV vitamin C in the fight against COVID-19. And again, that article dates back to March of last year at the very early onset as this pandemic started to kick off, right? So that being said, a couple other interesting articles along those lines I'll hit here. Let's see, back up here. After reading this. There we go. So thinking along the lines of how bad our diet is. There we go. Let's hit this guy. So this dates back to May 25th of 2019. Article entitled, "After reading this, you'll probably never want to eat genetically modified food again." This was out of Michael Snyder's End of the American Dream blog. But consider where we're at right now, right? World Economic Forum, Davos, yahoos, the Klaus Schwabs and company. You'll own nothing, be happy about it. That being said, we're supposed to eat bugs and all this while they get fat, dumb, and happy eating the good stuff. They're jacking with the economy to the point where it'll be prohibitively expensive for anybody to buy meat. So they have come up with a little solution for all the little people, right? And of course, that's going to be fake meat. And of course, fake meat, if you've been to your local grocery store, you'll probably find the fake meats in that in the cooler section along with all the rest of the meats because, you can't discriminate against fake meat. It doesn't even have to be refrigerated, but they actually had to lobby the store chains to actually put it there because it would give a bad connotation if meat were just sitting plainly out on the store shelf without any refrigeration, right? That actually happened. Look it up. It says every single day, most Americans eagerly gobble down foods that contain ingredients that have been genetically modified without ever considering the consequences. Most of us simply assume that the federal government would never allow us to eat GMOs if they were not safe. Unfortunately, it appears the federal government has completely failed us. And boy, howdy have they. And of course, just like as I got done describing about the old revolving door, the same is actually true of Big Ag and the CDC, the FDAs, and the farm bureaus and things of that nature at the top levels as well. Just a big revolving door. Says the material that I am about to share with you is deeply disturbing, and after reading this article, there is a very good chance that you will never want to eat genetically modified food ever again. But at this point, it is almost impossible to completely avoid GMOs because they are in almost everything. Unless they are specifically designated organic, most corn, soy, canola, and sugar beets grown in America today have been genetically modified, and almost all packaged foods contain ingredients derived from at least one of those sources. It says we'll get into some of these potential health effects of eating foods derived from GMO crops in a moment, but first I want to discuss a new trend that is potentially even more dangerous. In recent years, researchers have been pushing the boundaries of biology in order to come up with new plant-based alternatives to existing food products. Essentially, synthetic biology is being used to create life forms from scratch. And I guess I'll pause right there. I'm not sure if this article will touch upon that, but I'm thinking of what we just learned out of Israel recently. 3D printed meat, folks. Get ready for this. Step right up and get your 3D printed steak. Has the same look, feel, texture of a regular steak off a cow and that you may have had butchered down the way. But no. All you got to do is just print it up, and by golly, you got your steak right there. Impossible's bleeding veggie burger, shrimp made of algae, and vegan cheeses that melt are all making their way into restaurants and onto supermarket shelves, offering consumers a new generation of plant-based proteins that look, act, and taste far more like the real thing than ever before. What consumers may not realize, however, is that many of these new foods are made using synthetic biology and emerging science that applies principles of genetic engineering to create life forms from scratch, basically playing God. Says, but of course, nobody really knows what the long-term health effects will be once humans start eating synthetic proteins on a massive scale. And once these gene-edited organisms start spreading their genetic material in the wild, it could be a complete and total environmental nightmare. According to Rebecca Burgess, these food companies are not considering the future of genetic pollution. Rebecca Burgess, the founder of Fibershed, which last fall produced a report with ETC Group on the hazards of clothing made from genetically modified or symbio-derived materials, questions the efficacy of methods to keep gene-edited materials from getting into the environment. The concern is that they're using base life forms that grow rapidly and transfer genes rapidly, and they're not considering the future of genetic pollution. This is an even bigger issue in the ag world, and at this point, genetic drift has become a global problem. GMO contamination is well documented. According to the International Journal of Food Contamination, almost 400 cases of GMO contamination occurred between 1997 and 2013 in 63 countries. Part of the problem is that the very nature of nature. Many plants are pollinated by insects, birds, or wind, allowing pollen from a GMO plant to move to neighboring fields or into the wild. This genetic drift illustrates the enormous difficulty in containing GMO technology. Not only is genetic drift impossible to prevent, inadequate regulation also fails to hold seed companies accountable for any resulting damages and ultimately puts the onus on farmers who have been the victims of contamination. And I'm thinking along the lines of the old Monsanto goons and that who show up in the old black vans to browbeat farmers and that where they see some of this drift and find out that, some GMO crop just happened to blow into their field, unbeknownst to them. The next thing you know, you get these hucksters show up at your doorstep saying, pay us for our seeds. Don't think that hasn't happened. It has. It says we are monkeying around with life itself, and we really have no idea what the long-term consequences will look like. But what do we know? What we do know is that a number of scientific studies seem to indicate that GMO food is not healthy. According to a paper released by the American Academy of Environmental Medicine, animal studies have linked GMO food with a whole host of health problems. Several animal studies indicate serious health risks associated with GM food, including infertility, immune problems, accelerated aging, insulin regulation, and changes in major organs and the gastrointestinal system. Sounds like a win, right? Keep you piped full of drugs in the meantime. Says none of us would willingly sign up for any of these conditions, but that is what we are potentially doing when we regularly consume food that has been genetically modified. For those that are skeptical, I would like for you to consider what scientists discovered when they fed genetically modified soy to rats. The experience of actual GM-fed experimental animals is scary. When GM soy was fed to female rats, most of their babies died within 3 weeks, compared to a 10% death rate among the control group fed natural soy. The GM-fed babies were also smaller and later had problems getting pregnant. When male rats were fed GM soy, their testicles actually changed color, from the normal pink to dark blue. Oh boy. Says mice fed GM soy had altered young sperm. Even the embryos of GM-fed parent mice had significant changes in their DNA. Mice fed GM corn in an Austrian government study had fewer babies, which were also smaller than normal. Could this be a clue as to why there is a fertility crisis in the U.S. today? Researchers have also discovered that livestock experienced similar issues when they were fed genetically modified crops. Reproductive problems also plague livestock. Investigations in the state of Haryana, India, revealed that most buffalo that ate GM cottonseed had complications such as premature deliveries, abortions, infertility, and prolapsed uteruses. Many calves died. In the U.S., about 24 farmers reported thousands of pigs became sterile after consuming certain GM corn varieties. Some had false pregnancies. Others gave birth to bags of water. Cows and bulls also became infertile when fed the same corn. If this is what the hard science is telling us, why in the world are we doing this to ourselves? In the end, it all comes down to greed. 4 giant corporations have a virtual monopoly on the seed market today, and billions of dollars are at stake. So, an enormous amount of time and energy is spent trying to convince the American public that there is nothing to be concerned about, and massive amounts of money is poured into the campaigns of politicians that support GMO food. But they can't keep a lid on the truth forever, and an increasing number of doctors are starting to speak out. More and more doctors are already prescribing GM-free diets. Dr. Amy Dean, a Michigan internal medicine specialist and board member of AAEM, says, "I strongly recommend patients eat strictly non-genetically modified foods." Ohio allergist Dr. John Boyles says, "I used to test for soy allergies all the time, but now that soy is genetically engineered, it is so dangerous that I tell people never to eat it." Dr. Jennifer Armstrong, president of AAEM, says, "Physicians are probably seeing the effects in their patients, but need to know how to ask the right questions." World-renowned biologist Pushpa M. Bhargava goes one step further. After reviewing more than 600 scientific journals, he concludes that genetically modified organisms are a major contributor to the sharply deteriorating health of Americans. If you want to live a long and successful life, you've got to take care of your health. And most Americans don't even realize that genetically modified corn has actually been designated or designed to produce built-in pesticide in every cell. And what they're referring to there is the old Bt toxin in it that, is a spray stuff. It's resilient to that and no problems, except when bugs actually try to eat the stinking corn, their guts explode. What do you think that does to the inside of a human? GM corn and cotton are engineered to produce their own built-in pesticide in every cell. When bugs bite the plant, the poison splits open their stomach and kills them. Biotech companies claim that the pesticide called Bt, produced from soil bacteria, Bacillus thuringiensis, has a history of safe use, since organic farmers and others use Bt bacteria spray for natural insect control. Genetic engineers insert Bt genes into corn and cotton so the plants do the killing. The Bt toxin produced in GM plants, however, is thousands of times more concentrated than natural Bt spray, is designed to be more toxic, has properties of an allergen, and unlike the spray, cannot be washed off the plant. Do you think that it's actually safe to eat such quote-unquote food? Sadly, the health consequences from eating GMO food may not just be temporary. In fact, one study found that the effects of eating genetically modified foods could last for a lot longer than anyone had anticipated. The only published human feeding study revealed what may be the most dangerous problem for GM foods. The gene inserted into GM soy transfers into the DNA of bacteria living inside your intestines and continues to function. This means that long after we stop eating GMOs, we may still have potentially harmful GM proteins produced continuously inside of us. Put more plainly, eating a corn chip produced from Bt corn might transform our intestinal bacteria into living pesticide factories, possibly for the rest of our lives. Personally, I'm going to reevaluate my own diet because doing research for this article has kind of freaked me out. Most of the packaged foods that we eat today are not safe, and it is getting worse with each passing year. So again, very, very interesting article that I happened to come across and put in here as well. Bottom line, I'll go ahead and drop the link out here. Let's see if this will drop out there. You guys can download this at your leisure if you wish. And again, if you head over to the old Patreon site here, you'll be able to find that as well. And there we go. All right, let's see. One other thing I wanted to hit tonight is this guy right here. The amazing liver and gallbladder flush. So yours truly here has been on an adventure here in the last week, and I partook in a little experiment in doing said flush. So, again, thinking of the articles I just covered, the level of toxicity that we have in our food supply, in our medicines, if you want to call them that, etc., our air, our water, all of that stuff. Think of what that does to your liver and gallbladder and your internal organs. Where does all that toxin go? How does your body get rid of it at the end of the day? What people probably do not realize is that your liver does a major portion of that filtering, right? And you have to get rid of it somehow. But what people don't realize is that in order to maintain the healthy function of your liver, it periodically needs to be flushed. Well, just went through and did that, and boy howdy is that an experience. I will say this, I would highly recommend it. I would highly recommend it if you've never done it. If you have any sort of ill effects, there's about 2 pages of nothing but issues, you name it, within this book. If whatever plagues you, you never would have thought your liver had any control over, well, chances are it might, and may help your cause. So that being said, I would recommend to those that listen, perhaps picking the book up if you see fit, perhaps going through the regimen. And the regimen is not all that bad, actually. For about 4 or 5 days, you do a little prep work. Cut a lot of your sugar intake, cut your meat intake, cut your dairy intake, pretty much eat I guess for lack of a better term, kind of a vegan diet. That being said, you do up your intake of water. Chances are many of us are probably not well hydrated. In my particular case, I think I was up around about 2.5 liters a day, so be prepared to do the inevitable and make several trips. That being said, in conjunction with that, you're going to want to have a fairly acidic style juice, perhaps like a tart cherry juice of some sort, and consume about 8 ounces per day. You don't necessarily have to drink it all at once, but you can split up 8 ounces over the course of those prep days. And the reason you do that, obviously, is to help break up the accumulation of stuff that's in your liver, in your gallbladder, etc., in order to help break those stones and that down. Then, when you get toward the very end, your regimen changes a little bit, and of course, you'll actually do about the equivalent of a 24-hour fast. And that being said, once you get to that point, you'll pretty much consume one last shot of about 8 ounces of your cherry juice or whatever you use to use throughout the week, whatever you wish. And of course, then you pretty much don't eat anything for about the next 24 hours. Now it's time for the cleanse, as it were. And that being said, you get to about 6 o'clock at night, you start hitting a little salt water concoction. You down that, and you hit another one about 2 hours later. Then, basically, once you get past that, and of course you'll probably have to use the facilities, I'm sure, but about 10 o'clock at night, then you'll actually hit an interesting concoction of olive oil and also some grapefruit juice concoction. You'll suck that baby down, and basically you'll rest for about 20 minutes. And once that is said and done, maybe you do, maybe you don't have to use the facilities yet again, don't know. But nonetheless, you'll basically sit on that and rest through the evening. And then once you get up in the morning after a decent night's rest, then you'll repeat the process of your saltwater concoction, which in this case is Epsom salt and water. There we go. Epsom salt and water. You'll hit that a couple more times, spaced a couple hours apart, and let's just say you will be surprised at what you find. And this particular book, the author of this actually states in her particular case that she has done this about 9 times and still getting various stuff out, various sizes of stuff. Yes, there are pictures in there included in that book. But again, I would recommend that if you so desire and wish to get rid of some of the toxicity and that we're encountering, and perhaps maybe you've had to encounter taking some of these vaccines or mRNA style gene therapies, who knows what's in these concoctions. Your liver is going to have to process all that stuff, and of course you're going to need a way to get rid of that in order to maintain a healthy liver function. So that being said, you might consider it. Like I said, I gave it a whirl, and I was pleasantly surprised. I will say, on the recovery side of things, though, one thing that you'll want to be aware of is it will kind of feel like you've been worked over at the end of it. If you've ever had surgery, had to do any prep for that where you've fasted for 24 hours, just been on a strict water diet or anything of that nature, you'll know what I'm talking about. But it'll take you a little bit to recover, and once you're on the back end of it and actually start to reintegrate your normal diet, whatever that may be, you'll kind of ease into it and go from there. So again, just a very interesting experience. Like I said, you'll be pleasantly surprised at what you find as a result of that. So all right, well, that is going to do it for the broadcast here this evening. Like I said, I just happened to come across some various articles dating back a few years ago that seem to be a bit of a precursor to what we just have now witnessed here play out as part of this COVID business over the last now year or so of dealing with this. The signs were there, and so keep your eyes on, folks, especially health-related articles, things that, those of us that have pattern recognition, thankfully we do have the ability to see these things play out, but sometimes you don't really see it at the 10-foot view. You kind of have to scale back out to a 40,000-foot view before everything comes into full picture. So again, just happened to come across it, figured I'd share it with you here, and of course we'll see you guys back here real soon. We'll be back here, I believe, on Sunday for our roundtable. So until then, we'll see you then. Take care. God bless everybody.